Racing Electronics here at the Performance Racing Industry Show in Indianapolis, Indiana. Talking a little drag racing here. John Force Racing's Jack Beckman joins us. All right, I want to make sure I get this right, okay? You retire from drag racing. No. You didn't retire.
I got laid off.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not self-inflicted retirement, okay? You're an elevator technician, service guy. That business has its ups and downs, by the way. You've never heard that?
And a bunch of little jerks, Steve.
And that sort of thing. You get the call not only to go to drag racing, but to jump in John Force's car. What was that like?
So I was off for 3 years and 9 months, and it wasn't that I wanted to. Perdomo and Bernstein are probably the only two drag racers that retired on their terms. And remember, Bernstein came back twice. The rest of us just run out of money. And so I was blessed that after 22 years away from the elevator industry, they actually hired me back the week after my last race. So there I was back doing that. And of course I wanted to get back in a nitro car. And I'm a dragster guy and I'm a funny car guy. It didn't really matter which one. And the phone wasn't ringing, and I'm not great at finding money. And at 3.5 years, you figure that my chances have probably gone down. Nobody ever wanted Superman to get hurt in a car. And John Force means more to the sport than probably anybody that's ever put a helmet on and gone down the quarter mile or 1,000 foot. But when the phone rang, and I've got caller ID, and I'm driving my work van from job to job, and it says Robert Height, I knew instantly why the phone was ringing and what he was going to ask. But the first thing he said after I screamed yes 16 times was, I'm not offering you the job, because before we are able to put somebody in the car, I've got to check off all these yes boxes. Peak's got to say yes, Chevy's got to say yes, the Force family's got to say yes. He said, I just want to know if you're interested before I start asking. And I said yes about 10 more times.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. So getting back to the track, getting back behind the wheel of the car, that first run down the course, what was that like?
The chutes fell out at 150 feet. I swear to God I didn't do it. No, we did some things after John's accident to ensure, because in John's accident the roof folded up and the chutes didn't come out, and the chutes should have come out. And unintended consequences, some of the extra mounts we put on shook and pulled the chute cables out on the first run. So in a nitro funny car, we're slaves to track conditions. Pro stocks run fast when the air is good. Nitro cars run fast when the track's good. Well, my first event back was the Norwalk Night Under Fire, middle of summer, hot racetrack. There's only so fast you're going to go. But you stand on the throttle on a nitro funny car, and it goes to 4.5 Gs for the first 50 feet, and you think it's the fastest thing you've ever driven, and it settles down to 3.5, and the angel comes on your shoulder and says, you've got this. Right? The G's are starting to get manageable. Then the devil comes on your shoulder and says, hold on. You start stacking the clutch and ignition back in, it shoves you in the trunk. That's about the time the chutes came out, and it made it smoke the tires. So my first run was anticlimactic, but I needed to go through all the motions there. Really, to me, though, Steve, the acceleration, it wasn't. Even after 3 years and 9 months, and by the way, I want to clarify, I didn't drive anything in that amount of time. I push-started Chris Karamessina's 1964 Chisler car. That was it. That was the only drag car that I had been in 3 years and 9 months, so I had no acclimation. I was rusty. It was the getting strapped in the car that was the hardest thing to get used to. Wearing the helmet in that tight confines, getting crushed in there. Didn't like that, and it took a few runs to get used to that again.
I want to go big picture drag racing question. I was over at Tony Stewart Racing when they unveiled the 25th anniversary thing, and I always, you think of drag racing, we think of acceleration, we think of going down the track as fast as possible. Somebody said you get down the track and you have that oh crap moment, I'm going to end up in that highway way off the end. The braking on these cars, how we see the chutes and everything like that, but the braking systems on these cars and just the knowing that you've gone really fast really quick, but you got to stop really quick. What's the feel of that? What's the G's of that? What's the feel of that as you slow these things down at the end?
Sometimes people throw out outrageous numbers that do a disservice to whatever they're describing. If you said a Top Fuel car made 20,000 horsepower and somebody was aware that you were embellishing, you kind of lose your credibility. Top Fuel cars make a solid 11,000 horsepower. And then I tell people, you don't have to believe that number, but watch them accelerate, and here's how much they weigh. that number is a huge number. So G-forces, you hear bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Dragsters get more G-forces than a funny car because they're lighter, the engine sits over the tires, you can accelerate them harder. But a funny car will get a legitimate 5.4 Gs out at 350 feet. We had the big parachutes, the 14-footers on the car when I came back, and when those hit at the same time, and it's more than I had ever experienced, -7 Gs. So we went to the 12-foot chutes because I like my high balls, and it still hits a -5.5 there. So it could be a legitimate 11 G swing in a period of 3 seconds.
God, yeah, I never had thought that perspective over there. Just that perspective of slowing down, it just amazes me. Okay, so you get the ride, you fill it in for John, and you grab 2 Wallies over the course of the season. How rewarding is that?
So I said when I got in that car, we can win a few races here. And you always think that. We had 8 opportunities, and I had a car that was good enough to do it. Actually, the car that I drove had never been down the racetrack. It was a brand new car, designated as John's replacement car, but it had never run under power. And I weigh 20 pounds more than John, which may or may not affect the way the car runs, but the way we do our pre-race stuff, the burnout, the backing up, the way we work the clutch was very, very different. And Chris Cunningham and Tim Fabrizi and Dan Hood, they had to adapt to me. We had to keep stacking clutch on the car to get it to run as quick early in the run as it did with John driving the car. And I think the results speak for themselves. And the wild thing is, to tell you how great our year was, both qualifying runs Saturday at the last race of the year, the finals at Pomona, which we actually wound up winning the race, but both runs Saturday, we shook the tires and smoked. And I was shocked that 2 runs in a row we missed it. But missing it 2 runs in a row told us what our car wanted for Sunday, and we made the changes. But we were so good and so consistent, Steve, that missing it 2 runs in a row was an anomaly for our team. They're that good. I'm telling you, the peak squad, solid. I got into, well, it's hard to argue what my teammate Austin Prock did. I think I had the best car in drag racing, and Austin's car was actually maybe a tick better than ours. But how rewarding for John Force Racing.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the good news is you get to do it again going forward here. Pretty exciting. It's just got to be a rejuvenation. It's got to be just an amazing feeling to be in the seat you're in right now. I
think I have a good mentality for drag racing, and I want to see if I can paint a picture for the people watching. If you're an emotional person, this sport will eat you alive because the highs are unfrickin' believable, but the lows might be an hour and a half later, and they can be pretty bad. You've got to kind of be able to temper that deal, and I'm pretty good at that. I'm a hands-on guy. I'm a blue-collar guy. I'm a huge fan of the sport. And I think all those help me out with that mentality of all this. It's still hard to get past the pinch-me moment that I'm driving John Force's car, right? I got a chance to do it for 8 races. And by the way, that was all there was. I was just filling in for John, keeping his seat warm. People throw the term replacement. Nobody's ever going to replace John Force. You don't replace Mickey Mantle. The guy that took his place, Bobby Mercer, hell of a baseball player. Not that many people, but not that many people remember him, And so I got 8 races, and we got 2 trophies out of it. And we put John back in 2nd place in the points, and all was right with the world. And then they said, how about next year? Well, the answer already was a yes in an envelope, handed in, It's still a pinch me moment.
Outstanding, Jack. I love that story. Thanks for your time here at the Racing Electronics Display, and we appreciate your time.
Appreciate all you guys. Fun deal out here. If you've never been, you got to come out.
Oh yeah, PRI is awesome, that's for sure. That is Fast Jack Beckman, funny car driver, NHRA for John Force Racing.